1730 hours on April 4th, 2004, Sadr City of Baghdad, Iraq.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
1st Platoon, Charlie 25 Cav, was escorting a sewage truck in the southern part of the city.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
1755 hours as the sun began to set.
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
3 large groups of men scattered to the north as the patrol approached.
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
Everyone in the patrol began to scan their sectors.
Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah.
The city of over 2 million people grew eerily quiet. And then,
Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah.
what started as sporadic gunfire quickly became overwhelming from all directions. Enemy forces across the city called to arms by the echoing calls of prayer, bouncing from one minaret to the next. This sparked a chain reaction that threw the 1st Brigade Combat Team, 1st Cav Division, headlong into the battle we now call Black Sunday. I am your host, Eddie Lazary, and on this series of episodes, I will be talking to the troops who were there and their families. We will be following and discussing The Long Road Home, a 7-part miniseries on the National Geographic Channel. If you or someone you know served during the Battle of Sadr City, I want to talk to you. Join us over to our closed Facebook group 04-04-04. Now let's meet our next guest.
Yeah, it's weird with this show coming up. I don't know, all this stuff resurfacing like that's been kind of stowed away for years. It's a pretty strange thing, very surreal. Yeah.
But this is Bill Young. Bill was a dismount saw gunner of 3rd Platoon, Charlie 25 Cav.
So I think half of our platoon flew into Baghdad, and I went with the other half of the platoon on a 3-day convoy, I believe it was, from Kuwait over to Baghdad.
Oh yeah, I was a part of that.
You were part of that convoy?
Well,
Yeah.
That's how we got in. We convoyed from Kuwait all the way up. It took us like 3 days to get there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that well. Yeah. So, yeah, and I rode in the back of an LMTV over there, and you know how everything was all light skinned and everything, but
Oh yeah.
yeah. So, you know, we had done a couple patrols around Sadr City, and you know, before the attack happened, and you know, just taking in all how busy the city is and how hectic it is, and you know, just the smell of it and the sights and sounds. It's I mean, it's crazy. Definitely not like something back here at home, but
Thank God for that, right?
Yeah, thank God, man. Yeah. So on the 4th of April, I think we had done a patrol earlier in the morning, and I think it was a regular dismount patrol where we were, going through some of the markets and stuff, and I think things seemed normal. Now, when we got back to the base, 3rd Platoon was tasked as QRF. So, you know, we were all inside that big maintenance bay with bunk beds and all that. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we were in there, and, evening comes around, and then I believe it was one of the staff sergeants in our platoon, Staff Sergeant Reynolds. He told us that the QRF needed to load up, you know, with urgency, of course. And he said that platoon was getting attacked. And I don't even think we had any kind of like organized way of getting into these 4 up-armored Humvees. But, we all just stacked in there according to, whoever could fit. And so since I was a saw gunner, I went up and I was on top of one of the Humvees. So when I got up there, everybody's getting inside the Humvees. I was with my platoon sergeant who was in the Humvee with me, and another guy named Joe Carrasco, another guy named James Crawford, and an extra medic hopped in. His name was, he went by Doc Brown. I forgot his first name. I don't know. It's been years. But I didn't have my saw pendled down, right? Like how a 240 is, it's set there. So when you move the 240, the shield will go with it. So I kind of, they said that there was already a KIA. That's what the platoon sergeant told me. He said they were actively making contact and, that I need to get ready or whatever. So, I oiled up my saw and, hooked up the 200 round drum and, put a belt in. And I kind of adjusted the shield. Since I didn't have my saw pendled down, I adjusted the shield. I was like, okay, well, if we're driving and they're shooting from this direction, I guess I could hide behind the shield this way. So I kind of adjusted the shield and locked it down. And we raced out the base out of War Eagle. Mm-hmm. Man, we're flying down the road. I don't remember any of the streets at that time, because we were brand new there. Eventually I became a Bradley driver, and I got used to all the streets, after being there for, I don't know how many months after, But I remember the driving was pretty hectic trying to get over to the platoon. And, there was people in front of us, and, Joe Carrasco, who was driving, he's laying on the horn and he's kind of bumping people out of the way. And he's like, people are saying, get out of the way or whatever. And my platoon sergeant said, he said, you need to get ready. They're making contact right now. I said, okay. So I was kind of hunkering down. I didn't know what to expect, and we're going through all these busy streets. And then, like I said, I think we were going down Route Arrows. I don't remember exactly. It could have been Route Silver as well. But I just remember we hit one street. Oh, yeah, and on the way in, too, I could see plumes of black smoke all over the city. I was like, what the hell's that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they were burning shit all over the place, tires, all up and down, all the roadblocks. Yeah, and they were using burning tires as communications as well to kind of get everybody else kind of engaged and pinpointed where to engage us. We found out later.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy sight, seeing as we're entering into the city, seeing all those black plumes of smoke scattered all over the place. And when Sergeant Spice, my platoon sergeant, said that we were about to make contact, I guess I said a little prayer in my head. But I thought it was going to be like 2 active shooters. I didn't know all the details. I was expecting maybe 1 or 2 shooters. We'd roll up and do like a little cordon and then go help whoever needed to be helped. I'm like, man, dude, Jesus. So, after we're getting through all those busy streets, getting around all these cars, hopping up on curbs, we hit this one street and it's quiet, right? So it's like a ghost town. Nobody's outside. And I was like, this is weird. I was like, where is everybody? Because we were in there earlier today and everybody's all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I remember driving past, I think it was a tire that was burning in the black smoke, and we drove through it. And I remember that going past my face. And I was like, this is so strange. And I think at one point our 4 up-armored Humvees stopped, or maybe we slowed down or something like that. And then I started hearing a cracking noise. I was like, what is that? Because being on the receiving end of an AK, it doesn't sound like when you're shooting a gun. When you're on the receiving end, it almost sounds fake, like a cap gun, right?
Yeah.
That snap. It just doesn't sound like a tradition. What you would think a traditional firearm is. According to movies or whatever. Mm-hmm. Man, that cracking started to come from everywhere. And I look up ahead of me, and there's a guy named Brian Elliott. We call him Chief, and he's aiming to the right side. I'm aiming to the left side. And then, of course, there's somebody behind me aiming at the rear as far as the machine gunners on top of the Humvees. And there's a guy at the front aiming towards the front. And I look over at Elliot, and he starts shooting his 240 down an alleyway. It's like, what's he shooting at? And then all of a sudden, our Humvee gets hit. Ping! Gets hit with a round. I just started opening up. To be honest, I didn't see anybody at first. I was shooting at rooftops in my sector because I didn't know where the fire was coming from. Hopefully I was keeping guys' heads down. And then we started to move, and we started to go faster and faster and make turns. Each turn we made, man, the fire got worse and worse. I started to look down alleyways, and that's when I started seeing people peeking out and shooting.
Yeah.
So I fired back at them. Started seeing people on the rooftops too. And gun flash, I started firing at them. At some point, I was so full of adrenaline. I had already wasted a 200-round drum. Well, the guy next to me, his name was James Crawford. He brings his saw up, so I didn't have to take time to reload. So we ended up doing that the whole time. We ended up recycling saws. When my saw was out, I brought it to him. He reloaded it, and he sent his up. So it was just continuous fire, which was pretty awesome.
Wow.
Pretty good idea.
Yeah, it kept the barrels cool too that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and Sergeant Spice, who was the passenger of the Humvee, he's sitting there talking on the radio and everything, communicating with whoever he had to. And then I have Doc Brown to the left of me, and he has his window down and he's firing out. And at some point, I hit an alleyway and I saw guys, and I ended up hitting them with my saw. There's a Humvee behind me that was driven by Rafael Riera, and I remember him telling me. I remember seeing some guys on rooftops. I shot him, and he said that I'd hit a couple. So that at least helped. And, there was a point where some of our Humvees would come up to another roadblock, where it's just all those carts and all that scattered scrap metal and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they were just baiting us closer and closer in there. So we had to turn. There was a couple times where we had to stop and figure out where we were going. And the fires, we're still taking fire at that point. I'm using drum after drum on this saw. And man, yeah, these saws are getting hot. I remember us also running over debris. And then I also remember the first time we took an RPG, which was extremely jarring. I'm sure you've taken RPG fire.
Oh yeah, it's nothing like I had thought about it would be before we left. You'd watch all these movies with these RPGs that kind of float through the air real gently, like with the little smoke stream behind it, and and you can see them.
And they whistle like a bottle rocket. You see that on like Black Hawk Down. Right?
Yeah. You can see them coming, and you can like duck and get out of the way of them, right? All of that. Yeah.
They end up flying slow or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I remember the first time I heard an RPG whiz past us and explode next to us. I mean, that is like one of those big old gongs just going off right in your head. I mean, I was deaf.
Mm-hmm.
Totally deaf.
Even the launch is loud, man. I was surprised. When they're getting
the what?
The launch, when they first fire them, like the launch is loud. I was surprised by that at first.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that as well. Especially seeing video of it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when they launch them, that's equally as loud. But I remember James Crawford asking me, "Hey, where are they at? Where are the guys shooting from?" And I was like, "They're everywhere." And every once in a while, my job was to aim to the left and defend the left. Well, Elliot in front of me aimed to the right with his machine gun. And every once in a while, I heard cracking come behind me. So I would aim my saw behind me and start shooting to the right a little bit to keep guys' heads down. I remember we were kept running into these roadblocks, had to make turns. And then I remember Joe Carrasco that was driving my Humvee. We made a turn going so fast, I almost flew off the top of the Humvee. And Doc Brown ended up holding my legs. I almost got launched off the top of that thing. And it was so weird just seeing all these casings and all the links and stuff from my machine gun and just like completely being in shock. You know what I mean? Just not even, it was too much to even take in. I guess too much stimulus or something. And I remember kind of brushing the links off the top of the Humvee while I'm hearing all these zings go past my head and stuff's hitting the Humvee. And let's see. Yeah, that was continuous fire that we just kept going deeper into.
Now, was that before the sun had set, or was that as it was going down? What was the time frame here?
I think it was around 6 o'clock. I think, as far as I know, that when first platoon got hit and they called, we were the QRF. We were the first guys out the door to go try and help them. And then apparently, talking to some of these guys that were in first platoon, we ended up going right past them. We had no idea they were tucked away in an alley, right?
Right.
And they were up top of that roof. But apparently we were taking so much fire, we didn't notice and went right past them. That must have been a sick feeling for them.
Oh, my God, yeah. I can imagine, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, and we're continuously shooting, getting deeper and deeper into this mess, this hornet's nest, and running over debris, getting it caught up in the Humvees. And I remember at one point we hit Route Delta. We had made like a full circle and we hit Route Delta. And I remember the DAC, the District Advisory Council. You remember that?
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we had passed that. And so we were making one more push up Delta going towards Route Copper where they were. And man, as soon as we get to just a couple blocks up Delta, somebody tosses a grenade out from behind a wall, like through a door, tosses a grenade out. I see that thing explodes. Another RPG comes down, and I'm firing at all these people. We're running on all flats. We ended up turning around. Our vehicles were too damaged. I think one or two of our Humvees broke down right when we were getting back inside the DAC. So one of the Humvees had to push the broken Humvee, the busted up Humvee, back inside the DAC. But man, when you looked at all our Humvees, all the windows were spider webbed. I mean, there was pockmarks and bullet holes from all the rounds that we were taking, the small arms fire. Everything was flat, and it was crazy just coming out of that and then seeing all the casings and stuff fall out and just taking a look at my Humvee. What I forgot to mention was that, I told you my saw was not pindled down.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is I would duck and shoot along the side, on the outside of the shield, and over the top of the shield, and over to the right of the shield. A couple times I got carried away and accidentally shot the inside of my shield.
Oh, Jesus.
Dude, thank God those things have a downward deflection.
Yeah,
that points
right?
it out at the street. Because, man, that was... Wow. That was insane. I did that twice. And they're like, "Are you hit?" And I was like, "No, I shot the inside of my shield."
Now, it was
insane.
Well, you guys were in 1114s, right?
Yes, the up armored 1114s.
Yeah. Is the roof armored too, or no?
I believe the roof is armored.
Oh, I was gonna say you could easily deflect it off that shield and down into the truck if that top wasn't armored a little bit. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. Thank God they do have that downward deflection though. Yeah, everything is up armored on that thing. But it would have been Humvees these days, man. You see how they're fully encased with armor and stuff like that. Yeah. Definitely a lot safer now. But yeah, I forgot to mention too, right after we took those grenades and RPGs, when we tried to make one last push to go save first platoon, at that point I was shell shocked. I told James Crawford, I was like, man, I got to take a break. I can't do this anymore. And he's like, "Okay, I got you." So he stood up on the gun with his saw, and I sat down for a minute, like taking a breath, not being able to hear anything. And then as soon as he got up, we went on top where the machine gunner goes. We ended up at the DAC, and then we ended up pushing those Humvees in, and we ended up taking over the DAC and pulling security. We went up to the second floor, and we were looking off of this balcony. I remember seeing an Abrams tank rolling down Route Delta, and that it shot its main gun. Oh my God, man. Dude, that was so loud.
You know shit's getting real when you're firing an M1 Abrams main gun through a city of 2 million people, right?
Oh yeah, it's insane, right? And I could not believe what happened, and I don't know how it didn't happen. None of the gunners, nobody was hit with us. Of course we had up armored vehicles, but none of the machine gunners were hit. It was I don't know. It was definitely a life-changing event, and man, it just, I can't believe that it happened. Yeah, it's crazy.
Somebody once asked me when I got back, and I would tell them stories like this. They'd be like, were you really scared? It was like in the moment, it's really not fear, I don't think, because you're living it. It's real time. It's all happening. And sometimes things seem like they speed up. Sometimes it seems like time stands still. But it's when you're back when you have a minute, you're back at the fob, or you're taking a break and you kind of reflect back on everything that just happened. That's when, for me anyway, that's when like the shakes started to come. You know what I mean? Like
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. When I got out of the Humvee and Sergeant Spice, who was with me, he started laughing. He's like, "Hey man, you came close." And you could see all around, like the outside of the shield was hit all around me. And that's when I started shaking. That's when it hit home.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, like Jesus. And yeah, we sat there through the night, pulling security at the DAC. And then we ended up loading up and going to a police station to go defend that late at night. I think it was around Route Delta and Route Copper. There was a police station over there. And that's one of the police stations that our platoon took over for, several days. The other, half of our platoon went in these 4 up-armored Humvees. Well, the other half went out in LMTVs.
Right.
And, I remember a guy named Jeff Jahelka, who was in my platoon. He tried to load up in our Humvee before we left, and I was like, "Hey, Jahelka," I was like, "Man, there's no room. You're going to have to go find another Humvee." Anyways, he ended up going into an LMTV. He got shot through the neck. He's very fortunate that he survived. We had another guy, Sid Pardo. He got shot in his leg. It went up into his gut. Another guy named Torres, I forget his first name. He got shot in both of his legs. We got Sergeant Reynolds that got hit, who was with the LMTV. Sergeant Lorenzo, he got hit through his knuckle on the side of his head driving the LMTV. It was insane, man.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe it. Very, very cheap shot. But
and that's the thing too. I was trying to describe to people what that night was like. Somebody was like, why would they even try to go out in something like that in just an LMTV? And it's like, we just knew that there was guys pinned down. They needed our help, and people were literally going out in whatever was available, whatever could move. And we're first Cav division. We're tankers, we're infantrymen, mechanized, but we left more than half of that shit back at Fort Hood. So you got these tankers and mechanized infantry guys rolling around in Humvees and LMTVs and light-skinned vehicles. That's all we had. It's not like, it wasn't by choice. It's not like, tank or LMTV. Oh, let's jump in the LMTV and see how far we get. It was just out of necessity, and it was what was available. And I mean, the guys who were getting in these light-skinned vehicles going into the city, you could hear the gunfire in the background, and you know the difference between. You were there, so you got celebratory fire, right? When people get out there and they just fire guns in the air or whatever, soccer game or whatever, and that celebratory fire's got a distinct sound. And then you got just like random kind of gunshots, but then you have this very distinct sound, and it's gunfire fired in anger. Very distinct sound. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
People are fucking trying to kill each other kind of sound, and that's what it sounded like in the city. And it was more than one machine gun going off. It was hundreds. It was just unbelievable the amount of gunfire that was going off in the city. And you knew you're rolling into that. You may not known what you were in for or what to expect, but you knew that there was people out there trying to kill you.
Yeah, it was insane. It was still insane to think about. Every once in a while when we'd be on the guard tower and you'd see guys going out there to do movement to contact, and it would be quiet when they're rolling into the city, but then you could tell when they actually hit the city because you hear brrr, ba, 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 brrr,
right.
You see trays flying in the air, RPGs shooting over. It looked like a fireworks show, big old flashes from IEDs. It's surreal, man. Mm-hmm. It's surreal. You sit there and you think about it. You're like, man, what are we doing here? It's insane. Totally. I don't know, man. It's like no other, You
heard the series was coming out. What's your initial take on hearing that coming out?
I was excited about it. We have our OIF2 25 Cav, our Facebook page, and Eric Berkwin, you know Eric Berkwin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He had sent out information about, hey man, if you want to participate in this show, I had heard like a year before that it was going to be made into a show. I was just wondering when it was going to happen. I knew that it was going to be by Nat Geo. He sent out this thing. He said, hey, if you're interested, get a hold of Brock Allen Casting. And then, they tell you to submit your headshots. In a strange twist of luck, I did that, right? I submitted my headshots. I came for the family day when they were filming and stuff. I actually took my mother with me because she was there, the family day when we were leaving and everything. Mm-hmm. So I thought that'd be a nice thing to do. She came with me. We filmed for 3 days. I was very impressed at the detail that they had put into it. And then at the same time, I was also in shock and that this had became an actual show, that it is an actual show, and that it's the funding that's gone into it and the effort that has gone into making it what it is. It's just, it's insane. On the last day of filming, one of the guys from Brock Allen Casting, his name's Patrick. He said, hey man, we got this position, this featured role position for you. Are you interested in trying it? I said, yeah. He goes, well, we start filming tomorrow. And I said, okay, I'll be there. I was like, man. So anyways, I ended up going for filming, and I ended up playing as an extra next to the guys in the back of the LMTV. So next to the guys that are playing as Milton Berger, you have Jeremy Sisto, and then, you have the guys that are Arciaga and Garza, mm-hmm. and then Young, of course. So I am played as an extra as one of the guys that was in the back of the LMTV. I never met him before, but his name's Brian Emmett. So that's who I'm playing back there. I've seen myself a couple times in the show. I was honored to do it. At the same time, like I said, the whole thing is just very surreal.
Yeah.
And so
I can't even imagine having been through it, the real deal, and then come back, 13 years later, and climb back into uniform, the same uniforms we were wearing then, and climb into the back of an LMTV and sit next to actors that are playing guys you knew mm-hmm. on a set made to look like Sadr City in the middle of Fort Hood, Texas. Like, to me, that is just like unreal.
It is unreal, and I was kind of quiet about it, but at first, but one of the other extras that I was with, he told them that all the actors, he goes, he was in this fight, and they all looked at me and they're like, what? And I was like, yeah. They're like, what did you do in there? And I told them, I explained my story and stuff. They're like, man, that's crazy. We're so glad you're here. They were so humble and they were so kind the whole time, and it was a blast. They're great guys. We just shoot the shit, hang around, film. The only part that kind of sucked about filming is because I'm a full-time firefighter, and man, when it comes to filming, they could give you a call to come on to set like less than 12 hours in advance. And I'm like, man, how am I going to make this work with my fire department job? But somehow I got the trades and the vacation to go back and forth to Hood like 20 or 30 times to film.
Wow.
And I have no regrets. And I absolutely am. I was honored to play as that guy. I tried to get a hold of this Brian Emmett guy. I don't think he's on Facebook though, but if anybody from Alpha Company speaks to him, I'd like them to, definitely tell them to message me on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah. So that's the thing about this series on Nat Geo and the podcast that we're doing and the group that we've got. And I hear this from a lot of people, and that is that this has given a lot of guys an opportunity to reconnect with
definitely
buddies that they haven't talked to in a while. It's given people opportunities to talk about different things that they've gone through that they've just haven't really talked about in many, many years to really anybody. What's been kind of your experience?
Yeah, about this. Yeah, it's great, man. These people we hadn't talked to in a long time. I went to the 10-year reunion over by Fort Hood in, of course, 2014, April 4th. And I went to it was like a barbecue, and we all hung out and had a good time. And that was great. And, since this has all happened, it's been nice reconnecting with people, talking to them, seeing how they're doing. I've definitely, I'm definitely happy about that. And at the same time, a lot of guys have come forth with pictures that they have, which I've been saving and ripping all of them off of Facebook and saving them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have children now. I'd love them to see them. So that's a good thing too. We get to share pictures. I'm going to put a bunch of pictures on our OIF2 Facebook page pretty soon. So that's also a great thing. We could share pictures. Maybe there's a picture of somebody out there that I have that they don't have that they might want to show to their children or their family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big regret that I have from there. Is not taking enough pictures in Iraq. But dude, when you're in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you really think about that? You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's great. It's a great thing. About the whole ambush thing, I'm, incredibly sad that it happened. We all knew Eddie Chen, who was the first casualty that day. The next day on the 5th of April when we were at the police station, not all the information was correct, but I had assumed that half of my platoon was dead because one of the sergeants, I think he was in I can't remember if he was in 1st or 2nd platoon. His name was Sergeant Lovett. He came up and he was telling us who the people were in my platoon that went out in the LMTV. He said, this person's dead. This person's MIA. This person got shot in the head. And I'm like, oh my God, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about, taking down morale for a minute. But, yeah, it was just a very jarring and sad experience. You recently interviewed Arciaga's mother?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that episode released today.
I'm going to listen to that right after this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interviewed her and incredible story that she told, not only about her son Robert, but of her son Jeremy. And she really wanted to get that story out and really honored that she trusted me enough with that story, with her story, and sharing that. I'm also going to be interviewing her daughter soon. I don't know if you know, but her daughter was in the Army, and of course Robert was in the Army, and Jeremy and another son were both in the Marine Corps. So 4 children, all 4 served, and lost one.
Wow.
Yeah, lost one on April 4th and lost Jeremy to suicide. And that's just to lose 2 children in any form is, I couldn't even imagine. And so she's been through a lot, and the courage that she has to step forward and tell that story was powerful.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to listen to this. The podcast that you did with her. Now, when we went to, they let us come on set and see the mock Sadr City on the 4th of April, and they brought us along, and as well as some of the Gold Star families and stuff. And I met Robert's sister. And she asked me if I had known her brother. And you know how, when you're in your own company, you kind of stick to your own company. So I told her, I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know Robert, but it was very emotional talking to her. I'm terribly sorry for all the casualties, their families, and what they had to go through. I have 2 children of my own, I couldn't imagine. And
yeah, man. I got 2 children too. It just brings it into perspective, the amount of sacrifice and pain. It's like, you can't even honestly say I know what you're going through, because I don't, and nor would I want to. But the strength and courage that she has to tell the story in hopes that her message will be heard by somebody and make a difference. That's powerful, man.
Absolutely. Is this? So these podcasts, they're for the closed group, but are they open for other people to see?
So the closed group is just for the group, but the podcast episodes are for everybody. It releases on iTunes, Player FM, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube. It's on all of them. Oh,
great! Yeah, that's good.
Because the stories that we're sharing is bigger than our group, right? It's stories we're sharing for everyone to hear, and it's been incredible for people to come on and talk about their experiences and share their stories, and for other people that don't come on, they get an opportunity to listen. I've had many parents and relatives reach out to me and say, thanks for these podcast episodes. It's given me an opportunity to really kind of take a look and hear about different stories that went on. I mean, obviously you got the you got the show that people are watching and are interested in, but to actually actually hear from people, like you and Sylvia and other people that were there or have family members that were there, it really kind of solidifies the story,
Yeah, it sure does. I guess a good thing that I could take away from this whole time in Iraq is that being through all the fighting that we went through and all the stuff we were exposed to and the violence and, whatever else we had to go through, that kind of adjusted me to taking care of being able to handle myself in stressful situations. So I guess that, I've been a firefighter and a paramedic. I'm a firefighter paramedic, but I've been a firefighter for 10 years. And I believe that's, helped me keep my cool when it's, my experience from Iraq, when it comes to taking care of people that, need to be taken care of, that whose life are at risk or very ill or injured. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I could take that as kind of a positive thing to help people,
Yeah, absolutely.
And anybody too that's listening to this that was, everybody else that was making contact that day, definitely feel free to reach out to me and send me a message on Facebook. I'm part of the OIF225 CAB Facebook page. If anybody needed to talk about anything, because there's the amount of stuff we went through that day was it's too much for the mind to handle. It took me a lot of years of talking that out to kind of put it at bay. And, I'm glad this show was done and it's very well done. So that's good. I'm glad that people get to see it and see what we went through. So
you guys were you part of the premiere there on Fort Hood? They showed everybody a little bit early, the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, I didn't go to the premiere. I was actually in Big Sur, California. So I was on vacation with my wife, so I couldn't attend to that. But I definitely would have gone, and I wish I could have gone too. But after the whole show was done, we had a wrap party in June, and Nat Geo gave us a rough showing of the first and second episodes. They added some background music to it, and so we got to watch that, which was awesome. So
now it's like, was it moving into the 4th episode now? So everything that's showing now, you're seeing for the first time, like the rest of us, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everything that you guys are seeing, I'm seeing too for the first time. It's funny too because I'm seeing certain scenes, especially with Jeremy Sisto playing as Milton Berger, and Noel Fisher is playing as Young, and the other guys too. I remember those scenes because I went on set so many times, and I'm like, oh, okay, I know what's going to happen right now, as far as the dialogue and stuff like that. So that's been pretty cool too. When this whole show was about to start filming, I went ahead and read the book. I never read the book because I was like, I told myself, well, why do I need to read it? I experienced it. But I'm glad that I did read the book because, I knew that guys in Alpha Company had taken fire in an LMTV. I knew that some had been killed, but I did not know like at what extent and how actually terrible it was for the other people that went out after us, and that was definitely detailed in the book. So I'm glad I did read it. And, some of these guys are just, true heroes, man.
Yeah. And that's, that's the thing is, I was with the BRT, but I was attached to the BRT. I was a forward observer. So my parent company was 1st Battalion, 82nd Field Artillery. So, I knew, Justice and Sheehan. And what a lot of people don't, yeah. And what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these guys rolling out in these subsequent rescue patrols, they weren't infantrymen. Sheehan, he was a mechanic, a wheel mechanic, and you got people that are doing everything they can. You've got cooks. You've got,
what a selfless and brave thing to do. It's awesome.
Yeah. And that's something that's really striking to me about this particular series is we often, and this isn't to take away from from the guys doing the work of special operations, but the Green Berets, the Delta guys, the Navy SEALs. I mean, we watch a lot of movies and shows based off of their stories, and rightfully so, because they're in the shit a lot. This show is unique in that it's a story about the regular soldiers, the guys that were, the cooks, the mechanics, the armor and infantry guys that are rolling around in light-skinned vehicles, in the middle of this godforsaken hellhole, trying to help some, impoverished people become, better in their own country, and we just get the shit kicked out of us. That's really what the story is about, and how everybody comes together. And it's really difficult to portray everything that happened in a 7-part, 8-part series, because the entire brigade was involved in some form or fashion on all 3 FOBs. There was activity and support coming from all around. And like you said, we didn't know everybody that was killed or wounded that day. I mean, I don't know how many wounded down the Cuervo, and I don't know who they were, the extent of their injuries, the number of them, but it didn't matter. I knew that they were, my brothers and sisters that needed help, and everyone was just there doing whatever they could do, whatever that is. If it was get into the back of an LMTV and go out into the city and look, or if it was to, escort people, or if it was to man a talk, or, fuel up trucks or repair flat tires, whatever it was, man, there wasn't anybody standing around that day asking, what do I do? You know what I mean?
Nope. Yeah, a lot of guys just didn't say anything. They just hopped in. They said, let's go, without any thought behind it. And that is just, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And I'm thankful for those people. And we tried our hardest to get to that platoon. And it's just crazy how things worked out thinking about it, man.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, a lot of guys still struggle with sharing this experience. What would you say to guys that are listening to this or watching the series that are struggling in their own way to share their experiences or to talk about it? Any advice to them?
Yeah, to share their experiences or talking about it. Yeah, well, I mean, I just know what I went through, and certain people went through probably worse things, but the best thing is that I found is to talk about it, and especially talk to other people that you've been able to reconnect with since this show has started, because we all went through a similar experience. So it helps to if you feel like you can't talk to just other people that weren't in the military about it, that's why we have that Facebook page, and it's a great thing that you could just contact us and talk about it. And I think that's helped, and that's been therapeutic, is talking to others that were there. The more I talk about it, I guess the easier it gets. For me, the 4th of April, I don't know, there was a lot of times after that where we were making contact where, I thought I was going to die. And I've had to, talk that over, and I've told people about it, and some people just don't get it. And I guess when you tell people about your experience, and either they're just looking at you puzzled, or they might think that you're bullshitting, I mean, it's kind of a letdown, and it makes you internalize it even more. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I guess that's the best advice I could give. If you need to talk about it, that's what our Facebook page is for, and that'll help too. And I'm always willing to talk to whoever needs to talk about it, for sure.
Yeah, and that brings us to the family members, those that were left home, that like Sylvia, like these Blue Star and Gold Star families that had service members over there during this time. This has been quite the eye-opener for them, and a way for them to connect to us and to connect with other family members in such a powerful, profound way that it's helping them bring some closure in their lives, and just being able to talk with guys that served alongside their father or their son or their sister or their brother. Whether we knew them very closely or by name or not, we were there on the ground, all in the suck together. And there's just something to be said about that,
Yeah, and Robert Hendrickson's dad is my friend on Facebook. Robert Hendrickson died right before we came back from deployment, which was a really unfortunate thing. And he's talked about his son a couple times on Facebook, and I've told him if he ever wanted to talk about anything that I knew his son and he was a great guy. And if he ever needed to talk, definitely I'm a phone call away. My parents, after this whole thing was over, they didn't know for several days that we had even made contact. I guess they didn't see it on the news or something, but after they found that out, they were, of course, incredibly stressed, just like every other parent. I wish my father was around to see that this had been made into a show, but unfortunately he passed away 2.5 years ago of pancreatic cancer.
Sorry to hear about that, man.
Yeah, no, it's such is life, I guess. That was an extremely hard thing to go through. And that's another thing, when you lose a loved one, to just talk it out with whoever, whoever you can. But he read the book. He was very proud of what all of us did as a unit, the first Cav, what we did over there. And he would have been so ecstatic and so excited that this got made into a show, because he was always asking about it and always asking about the guys and everything. Yeah, it would have been a great thing. But
so once you rolled out into the city, you fortunately didn't you weren't back in Eagle for a few days after that, right?
No. So that's when we went to like I said, we took over the DAC, and then we took we stacked in the back of some LMTVs, and slowly at night, I think it was around midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, made it over to a police station, I think on the area of Copper and Delta. We cleared that police station out, and we defended that police station for several days. I can't remember how many days, but there was also very heavy fighting along those days as well. And those guys were relentless.
Yeah, and that's the thing I tell people is, you watch the series, you're going to hear a lot about April 4th, 2004, and the Battle of Sadr City, Black Sunday. You'll hear all those terms, and that's what the story's about. But for us, that was just the start of everything, because it was man, we were living in the shit for the rest of the year. I mean, every day wasn't as intense as April 4th was, but from that day on, man, that's, we were in constant contact all the time, no matter where we went.
Oh yeah, there was a point where we couldn't even take Humvees out. We had to go with Bradleys only. I mean, those IEDs got progressively bigger and bigger and bigger, and it definitely hurt our morale when some of those Bradleys got blown up. I've seen a tank get blown up, burned to pieces. It's crazy, man.
Yeah. I remember there was a Bradley that got hit in the middle of Sadr. This was after April 4th. I don't remember exactly when it was, and so we were basically, they had to bring a Mike 88 in there to basically pull it out, and we were just
that got hit.
Yeah, well, we were in Humvees pulling the BRT. Some elements of the BRT were pulling escort for the Mike 88, so we're rolling in Humvees trying to get the Mike 88, to the Bradley that was, through a track, and it was all shot to shit, and it finally got so hot that they ended up pulling the Humvees out. Said we had to leave, and they brought in some tanks and some other heavy armor, and it was brutal, man. And we had a helicopter shot down that landed inside the southern part of Sadr City, and we had an element of BRT.
Kiowa.
Yeah, Kiowa, that's right. And we had to go, and one section had to secure it, and the other section had to find a route in with a flatbed Hammett in order to pull it out. I mean, these stories go on and on and on about our year there, and it was just just to think we deployed there really to rebuild infrastructure, get electricity going, running water, rebuild some bridges, some schools. I mean, that's really what we went for. And man, that sure is not what we ended up doing by the time we landed on the ground there.
Dear God, no. Yeah, man. I was there for that Kiowa that got shot down. I was driving a Bradley for Sergeant Butte, one of the squad leaders, Bradley commander, and Also, Alejandro Perez, who was a gunner, and yeah, I watched them skull drag that thing out of the middle of the city with chains, and watching that, and the rockets were slipping out and dragging on the ground, and we were behind it, and it was crazy. I'm glad those pilots survived.
Yeah,
it's been a terrifying experience for them, you know.
Yeah. Could you imagine? They had what 9 mil a piece probably, and maybe a flare gun or something. I mean, they were definitely not equipped to be in the middle of that shit for sure.
Oh man, yeah. You know, I sent you a picture too of me on my saw, and there's I'm wearing night vision, and that was taken out of one of the guard towers of the police station, and we had been up probably for a couple nights, like we hadn't slept or anything. And man, talk about being exhausted, and you know, it takes a lot out of you, all of that. Yeah, pretty crazy. Yeah, those guys are very fortunate that they survived that crash. It's weird to think back on this stuff. It's like a dream, like it never happened.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's weird. Your mind tries to piece it together, but I think when you're overstimulated, your mind is like that. It's just, I guess you forget things, you know?
Yeah, and that's been what's really been cool for me, talking to all these different people from different perspectives, telling different stories, jogging the memory a little bit. And it's just like, you know, some things kind of are coming back to my memory where I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And so some of the stories that, you know, I mean, it's kind of a weird place to be in life, because combat is, although it can be horrific and terrible, but it also can be exciting and amazing in some weird way, right? I don't know how to explain it other than that, but
there's a bitter sweetness to it.
Yeah, it's like anytime our truck would get hit by an IED or roll through a small arms ambush or whatever the case would be, and we'd get back to the fob, like you never, I mean, the feeling that you get that you cheated death, it was, you just laugh, right? And the adrenaline's pumping. Just no other feeling like it, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, you know, I was reading a book. It's called The Things They Caddied, and it was written by an author named Tim Obrien, I think in the early 90s. He's a Vietnam veteran, and the way he writes is absolutely genius. But he told his experiences about being an infantryman over in the Vietnam War, and it's been therapeutic reading that. So if anybody's listening, they should try and pick up that book. The way he explains war, just like you said, the bittersweetness to it, the excitement, but the not wanting to get into it. You know what I mean? The fear and excitement going at the same time, confused emotions type thing. Yeah.
What's the name of the book?
It's called The Things They Caddied, and it's by Tim Obrien. You know, my sister read read a couple of his chapters. It's definitely there's like English classes that use his writings as part of their curriculum, so you can analyze it and study it and whatever.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna.
The way he writes is almost poetic. Yeah, it's really good. It's on Amazon. You can pick it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for those listening, I'll have a link to that in the show notes page of this episode, so you can just head over to changeyourpov.com, and at the top, click on podcast. You'll find the 444 page. That'll take you to all the episodes for this series, and just hop onto this episode, and you'll be able to see the link to that book. That's really cool. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Excellent, man.
Well, Bill, thanks for your time, man. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you.
And geez, I could talk about this shit all night long.
I know, me too, right?
Thanks for being part of the group. Thanks for doing what you're doing. You know, with the fire department and volunteering to be part of the cast of Long Road Home. That's amazing. You had an opportunity to do that.
Great experience. Yeah. Great experience. Yeah.
Very cool.
All right,
and
man.
If anybody wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Just hit me up on Facebook. Just you can put in my first and last name, find me on the OIF 225 Cav webpage, or just put Bill Young San Marcos. That's where I live, San Marcos, Texas. You'll find me.
Okay.
And I'll have the 4404 symbol, the cab symbol that's on as my profile picture. So
awesome.
All right,
Very
man.
cool, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and shoot him in the face, huh?